Jay Bell, welcome to the Bookaholic Podcast.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate you being here.
Yes, so glad to have you here.
Mhm.
So, got to tell you a little story before we get started.
Please
So,
do.
I have two sons. One is now 28, and when he was little, we used to buy him the Magic Treehouse
Okay.
series
Yep.
and
Sure.
Adventures of a Brother and Sister, I believe it was. But
Mhm.
anyway, they got like 40 books or more. Anyhow, he read those. He read all through those. Then he advanced to later on the Harry Potter books. So
Of course.
they were
Yeah.
all this thick. He
Yeah.
read all of those. Second child, now 23, and at that time their school had like a mandate that you had to read a book a week or something like that, that you had to keep up
Hmm.
with your reading log.
Yeah. Right.
And boy, that second child did not like to read. Oh gosh, it was just terrible. I can't remember, and I've got to ask him who turned him on to comic books.
Mm.
um I can't remember who that was, but anyway, I'm very curious to find out. But he got turned on somehow to comic books,
Sure.
and he there was superhero comic books, and he read those just voraciously, just read and read and read. I still, as a parent, was not happy and satisfied, and I confessed this to a teacher, whoever his current teacher was, right?
Mm.
And so she was like, Deirdre, reading is reading is reading. And I was like,
Hmm.
oh, yeah, it is. So, till this very day, the older son reads a lot of self development books, nonfiction,
Okay.
and the younger son reads graphic comic tomes that are this thick and
Mm.
all kinds of comics and all of this. So both of them are big readers as their mother, which now I
Good.
am happy and proud. But it circles back to you and
Mm.
your reading origination. You didn't like to read, and then
That's
how were
true.
you turned on to pulp fiction?
My father, I think he was sort of desperate to get me to read something. I don't know, because I was just not interested at all. Didn't enjoy it. And of course, I was kind of slow in early school, so I wasn't exactly the smartest or fastest student or the best student. I mean, I didn't want to apply myself. But anyway, yeah, he just handed me this book of Conan the Barbarian stories, and I started to read that, and there was sword fights, and there was evil wizards, and there was, you know, all this blood and horror and whatever, and ancient civilization. I was like, I was hooked. I was like, oh my god, this is good stuff. I didn't realize this was in a book. I didn't know that. I thought it was all really dry stuff, but now I can read the stuff. And so,
Yeah.
I'm 13, 14, 15 years old, and I'm reading things like Mickey Spillane and Louis L'Amour, and just all the pulp fiction stuff that I could find. And it was probably, looking back on it, probably not age appropriate stuff that I was reading, but I think my parents were like, they don't care. The kid's reading. Let him read whatever. It doesn't matter. Just read it. Okay, fine. And so that sort of got me connected. But I look back on it now, and I think some of that stuff, probably was not appropriate. Maybe that's why I'm as screwed up as I am now. But whatever it was. It was what got me hooked on the whole idea of reading. And then of course I turned to Alexander Dumas and all the classics, Raphael Sabatini, and just sort of morphed out into all the different genres that were that. But I still have a huge love of pulp fiction, and it's difficult to get me into a literature with a capital L story, but I can do it if I have to, but I really don't want to. So I just do what I want these
It's
days.
Look, it's okay. It's
Hmm.
okay. Like you said, we can do whatever we want these
That's
days.
right. We're big now.
Absolutely. Shoot.
Yeah.
Okay, really.
Hmm.
So, for the audience, I have a variety of listeners, and there's some younger people that may not know the definition or the genre of Pulp Fiction. As a matter of fact, you reawakened me to that. And they're only thinking about Pulp Fiction, the movie by Quentin
Sure.
Tarantino. So,
Yeah.
enlighten the audience on what is Pulp Fiction and who were some of the kings of the day of those books. And you have
Oh,
already sort of mentioned them, but go ahead.
yeah. Wow. So it's not going to be, as I may have alluded to earlier, it's not going to be literature with a big L. It's usually very, somewhat simplistic themes, somewhat of the, oftentimes the tarnished knight syndrome, where you have the main hero is not necessarily a completely good guy, but he has a moral code. So, there's this, and of course there's action always involved in it, in one way, sense or another. Sometimes blood and gore, but it's just not going to be something that you read to necessarily make yourself a better human being, right? So if you're reading some of the classics, which I'm sorry, but I just can't stand some of them. But the F. Scott Fitzgeralds and whatever, you're reading that and you're supposed to get something out of it that makes you a better person and makes you understand the human condition or any of these types of things. That is not Pulp Fiction. Okay, Pulp Fiction is just for entertainment. It is about simplistic themes, and a lot of times, good versus evil. It's about the overcoming. Sometimes it's a redemption story. Sometimes it's just a coming of age, if you will. But they're and there's not a lot of it being written these days. But I look at some of the folks like oh gosh, I'm going to draw a blank now. Of course, when I'm on camera. Greg Hurwitz writes the Orphan X series. That's one that I sort of consider Pulp Fiction. But back in the day, I mean, it was all over the place. It was the thing that was. It was the Earl Stanley Gardners. It was the Donald Westlake. It was, gosh, like I said, Louis L'Amour, Zane Grey. All the Western writers of the day.
Yeah.
And so there was just tons of them. Like the one I reference the most is, of course, Mickey Spillane, who wrote the Mike Hammer series, and he had a character. One of his other main characters was called Tiger Man, if you believe that, man with two N's. And I was like, really? Even at 15 years old, I'm like, really? Okay, yeah.
Wow.
But yeah, so it was it was back then, in the Wayback Machine, and some of these were written way before I was even born. But still.
Oh yeah,
You look
definitely.
at you look at some of the noir classics like from Raymond Chandler, Philip Marlowe and that type of thing. It's
Yes, that's right.
it sort of has its roots in that type of fiction.
Absolutely. Now, so I got a lot out of what you said, and it did
Mhm,
trigger some memories. You said Errol Stanley Gardner.
mhm.
For the younger people in the room, he was the writer of Perry Mason.
Yes, he was.
And Perry Mason I got totally hooked on Perry Mason because now Perry Mason has a whole entire station on Pluto TV.
Oh,
So
okay.
for younger people, they have circled back because of Pluto TV, because a lot of people are fans of I Love Lucy, a lot of younger people. So you circle back, you
Mhm.
can check out the Perry Mason series, which is fabulous. And it's definitely Pulp Fiction.
Yeah.
Definitely. The woman was always crestfallen. Her husband was having an affair. And did she kill him? That kind
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
thing. So,
Sure.
yeah, there you go. Now, another thing that you brought up that triggered my memory, also on a technical, now, and you correct me if I'm wrong, on a technical basis, it was called Pulp Fiction because it was paperbacks for the most part. They were never hardbacks, right? They were paperbacks. So the
Yeah.
pulp,
Yeah.
pulp
Yeah.
paper.
Great point. Yeah. It was oftentimes very cheap paper. Very cheap to produce. That's why
Mhm.
you go to a used bookstore today, you'll find them, if you can find them, they'll be in like plastic sleeves because they'll just
Right.
disintegrate. But
Absolutely.
yeah, and it would be yellow, and the yellow paper, and trying to read, sometimes it was like, get some light on this thing because it's turned yellow on me.
Yes.
But so yeah, good point.
Absolutely.
Good point.
Yeah. And located at the drugstore. See, was at the drugstore. And
Yeah, it was not mainstream. Well, I say the mainstream. It certainly wasn't critically acclaimed work. I'll put it that way.
right.
But yeah,
Enjoyable all the same. Enjoyable.
exactly.
Oh gosh. So Jay, when I was reading your bio, I saw something that we might have in common. You grappled with, say, a loss of time. You started writing, and then maybe careers happened and kids
Mhm.
happened, and you wrote what you said was a very bad novel, as well as just other jobs coming along, and then you picked writing back up because you
Mhm.
went to some creative writing classes, et cetera, et cetera. How do you grapple with that loss of time? Do you feel like it was a loss of time, or do you think it was the perfect time that you started writing again?
Well, I think I was ready when I got to this point, because I think I know there's a lot of young folks that are out there that are writing that do great. But at that time, I think I needed some life experience to inform my writing. But I was not somebody that could pick up a 20 and be able to craft anything like what I've done now, because I didn't know a lot. It was,
Right.
and like I said, life experience. I got a degree in criminal justice. I worked in that field for many years, and so it got me exposed to the legal system and law enforcement and all those types of things that have informed my fiction. So I think I was ready at that time, to really dig into it, because I don't know how people with families do it, because going to soccer games, going on the road all the time to do meetings and whatever to further the career, right?
Yes,
But
absolutely.
but taking care of kids is a full-time job, and that's
Absolutely.
fortunately my wife did most of it, but it had to be dad, it was so, and that's fine. I enjoyed it, loved it, but I think waiting, whether consciously or not, it was something that when I was ready to start again, I was ready to start. It was time to get into it, right? So that's kind of where I
Yes.
put that gap in time. Is I was gaining a lot of life experience. How's that? I'll put it that way. I won't say making a lot of
That
mistakes, but
sounds well, so after the bad now, so fill me in.
Mhm,
After the bad novel, and after your life experience, you wrote
mhm.
this book, right? This was the very next thing.
No, actually not.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I'm gonna throw you a curveball. All right. So
Okay. Here we go.
yeah, definitely. That is number 11 out of my category of writing. I started 2000 and started back to writing 2011, 2010, somewhere in there, and
Yes.
wrote, and got critiques, and went back and forth. It sort of developed as a writer, and finally sold my first book to a small press out of North Carolina. It was called Yeager's Law, and
Oh,
I was under the name Scott Bell. All right. So, and
okay.
then I sort of wrote, and I got like 10 or 11 or so books out there into the world, published under the name Scott Bell. And then when I got connected to Blackstone Publishing, they were like,
Hmm.
well, it's you've got all this back history. We want to start you fresh. We want to start you, we want to break from the past. We want to go into it and give you sort of a new persona, and that's fine. I mean, it's like, hey, you're going to publish my book. You can call me whatever you want to call me.
Right.
We put it, under the name J.S. Bell, which J is my first name.
Yes.
So J.S. Bell, and so that was sort of a debut of J.S. Bell. So it,
Yes.
unfortunately, I think Blackstone, or maybe it was me, I don't know, but we sort of got into this. Who is this person supposed to be? I'm a little bit schizophrenic now, so I don't know who I am at any given time. I have two different email addresses, one for J.S. Bell, one for Scott Bell. I'm like, try to keep up with all that. So yeah, but it's good from the standpoint, from a marketing standpoint. I can, there's no history, there's no, you look at some of the things that I wrote under Scott Bell, and they're, personally, I think they're great books, but different genres, because I'm kind of the ADD equivalent of a squirrel. Whenever it's trying to find a nut, it get all over the place. And so anytime I think of a new idea, I want to write, whether it's in, the thriller genre, or if it's in the science fiction genre. I mean, I just want to write it and just do that story. So you look at
Right. Right.
the Scott Bell titles, and you see a bunch of stuff that is not necessarily Welcome to Cottonmouth, right? It's a
Right.
different genre. So anyway,
Right.
that's my story. That's actually book number 12, but under
Thank you.
first one under J.S. Bell.
All right. So thank you for clarifying that,
Mhm.
because I
Yeah.
think your media kit was kind of like throwing away Scott Bell. They didn't say in there that you had written those many
Yeah.
books.
Yeah. They're just trying to give me a new clean start.
I see that. And so, welcome to Cottonmouth. When I received this book, I was like, welcome to Cottonmouth. I mean, the title is intriguing. Isn't Cottonmouth, is that a snake?
It is. Yes, it is.
So
Yeah, I know,
there's
right?
that. I was like, oh,
No
so yeah,
snakes were harmed in the making of the book, but yeah. Oh, there's
and
not
the
even a snake
cover.
in the book, but yeah.
The cover is genius. It's mid-century. It's like a motel. It's the
Hmm.
motel out in the desert, like sparse area, the one you don't really want to stay in that I passed by. And it's just classic. It's a wonderful, wonderful cover. The cover says a lot. So, how would you describe this book? What is the genre of this book?
I would say I won't say spy thriller. I guess, yeah, spy. Let's call it a spy thriller, just
The
for sake of
spy.
argument. All right. But it's definitely Pulp Fiction. All right. It's definitely going to be, it's about unique and broken characters that
Mhm.
are come together as a group to achieve a common goal. And there's some redemption in there. There's some definitely some character development. But it's sort of in a way it's an ensemble book, right? The ensemble characters, because I just thought it was fascinating to have all these unique different individuals in one story, and was able to do that with this particular vehicle that got me there. So
Wow.
it's just a lot of fun, in my opinion. It's just going to be a fun read, and you're not gonna improve as a human being, but you'll be happier at the end of the day,
You'll
right?
be entertained. You gotta have some
That's all I
self-care.
care about. That's all I care about. Yeah. Did you
Exactly.
have fun? Did you enjoy it? Did you get a good time? Yeah.
Well, tell us about the book.
Well, it's the premise is that back in the 40s or 50s, or early 50s, when the CIA was first formed out of the Cold War.
Mhm.
They were given a mandate by Congress that they're allowed to resettle up to 100 people per year, who have provided the United States with intelligence based upon their own, sort of betraying their own country, right? So intelligence sources overseas, and so on. We could resettle them in the United States. Congress said you could do up to 100 a year, right? And we don't
Mhm.
know if they won't tell you how many exactly, but they'll say, sometimes they've been up to at least that much. And you think about that, where do they put them? So where do they
Right.
go? So my concept was, all right, so what if they all were settled into one small town in East Texas, and that small town not only had foreign individuals, foreign actors who benefited the U.S., but also had retired, or maybe healing U.S. assets, operatives, and so on, in one
Mm.
place. So I created this town called Cottonmouth, and I filled it with a lot of different characters, Israeli, Russian, United States,
Oh,
obviously Britain, all the different places, and sort of put them in this one big salad bowl, and
wow.
created this little town where they're supposed to be secret, and they're supposed to go out and make noise, and nobody needs to know who they are. And that's sort of the prime directive for them, is to just stay quiet and stay out of the way and don't get noticed.
Wow.
So of course we drop a rock in that pond by sending in um, a damaged woman with a small girl who was going to be sex trafficked, um, but
Oh,
uh, but she saves her. Britta Thorpe saves the young lady Siobhan, and they come to town. Their car breaks down, oddly enough, right in Cottonmouth. So then, and they're obviously being pursued by evil forces, by bad guys right and left. And one obviously main villain who was the center of the antagonist side of the argument, and they this danger, this comes to town, and wants to bring them back to the bad guy. So,
mm,
and then our hero Devlin Mahoney, who is sort of the de facto mayor, if you will, who
yeah.
runs the motel that they're staying in, as this cover place. He has to decide, am I going to get involved and protect these women, or am I going to just let things play out so they don't, so no harm comes to the town, right? So that's the
Right.
dynamic there in play. And of course, referring back to my trope of the tarnished knight, right? So Devil may not be the
Yes.
best guy in the world, but he's also got a code, and the code is like he's not going to
Yes.
allow harm to come to innocent people. So of course he gets
Right.
involved, and things escalate from there until we come to
Yes.
the final conclusion of the good guys versus the bad guys, and
Right.
so on.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I was going to ask you, do the retirees stay retired or do they get involved or do
Well,
they
if they
take
stayed
it?
retired, it wouldn't be very much of a story, would it? I mean, if they just stayed at home, like, no, you're not gonna get in danger. Just gonna do my thing. But yeah, it escalates the entire. I don't say the entire community, but a big part of the community gets involved in this action that has to take place.
Yeah. It sounds exciting. It sounds exciting, and I can't wait to dive into it. I've had it quite a while, but of course, I've got like 100 books on my TBR list. So, and really, that's
I
a
feel
low
you.
ball number.
I,
That's not
I
really
feel
true. It's a low.
well. I feel your pain, but yeah.
Absolutely. So, what else do you have up your sleeve as far as writing? Do you see any of these characters becoming recurring characters?
Oh yeah, I mean that was the beauty of this idea, and I wish I could come up with another idea that works as well. But the idea is that each one of these individuals has a backstory. And
Yes.
we only dip our toes into the backstory in the first book. So the second one is written, and it's off to
Oh,
the agent. So I'll let you know if it gets accepted. But regardless, the sequel to Cottonmouth is written. I don't have a title for it yet, but just or I have a title, but they didn't like the title. So anyway, we're going down that road. Anyway, it's fine. I mean, they didn't like it first. For the title of Welcome to Cottonmouth, when I sent it off, was called Cottonmouth Motor Court. That was the name of the book, but they didn't like that.
oh,
So
gotcha.
now it's Welcome. Anyway, I'm
Yeah.
terrible
Yeah.
at titles. I'll put it that way. So where was I? There was going somewhere with that. Oh, the sequel is written, and it carries on with the same characters. It delivers more backstory. I think we go into the time that the protagonist Devlin Mahoney spent in prison in Kosovo with his buddy Zivan, who's the Russian sniper, and we get into a little more of Hannah Mashi, who's the Israeli spy, and so it gets into some backstory. So anyway, that's out there, that's
Yeah.
done, and
Oh,
then
absolutely.
and then yeah, I'm still writing as Scott Bell, so I turned in another one of those to the publisher just recently, so I assume that they'll accept it, but we'll see. So it was number 4 in a series that I'm writing with a Texas Ranger and a FBI agent teamed up. So the dynamic there is just to, I'll just talk about this all day long if you let me. But the dynamic there is the stalwart sort of Randolph Scott looking Texas Ranger is paired with
Oh,
a
yeah.
small New York Bronx born female that is totally New York, right? So they're
Yeah.
paired together, right? So the cultural dynamic happens as well as there's some personal dynamic there obviously too. So it's
Right, right, right.
interesting path these two are taking.
Oh, wow. By the way,
Mhm.
a side note, I'm married to a person from the Bronx. So I know
Okay,
I know kind of know what you might be
you
speaking
know
of.
what they're talking about, then, yeah,
Yes, absolutely,
you know what I'm talking
absolutely.
about.
Larger than life
Mhm.
Bronx people. So,
That's right.
but this all sounds fascinating. I can't wait to receive. I want to be one of the first people to receive the sequel to Cottonmouth. Welcome to Cottonmouth. So I'll put that out there.
That's fine.
But
You
yeah,
just got to put it on top of your TBR pile, and we'll be
that's
fine.
exactly, exactly. Well, Scott Bell, J. Scott Bell, thank you so
That's
much
me.
today for joining me. I really appreciate it. And we'll have his information in the podcast show notes as well as the video description box on YouTube.
Mhm.
Jay, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you so much. Take care of yourself. I appreciate it.
Thank you.